She walked in the grand lobby, shoulders back, her simple gold wedding band catching the light. But when she presented her military spouse ID, the receptionist's sneer was unmistakable. They didn't know who Martha Washington truly was, or what power she wielded. Martha Washington adjusted her modest navy dress as she approached the gleaming reception desk of Lancaster Grand Hotel. At 58, she carried herself with quiet dignity, her salt and pepper hair framing a face marked by both joy and sorrow. 20 years had passed since her husband, Colonel Thomas Washington, a decorated Marine Corps officer, had given his life in service to his country. But Martha's connection to the military never ended. Now, as a director of military family compliance at Dominion Equity Partners, she wielded significant influence. Her department was responsible for evaluating how businesses treated military families before Dominion invested billions. Today's visit wasn't coincidental. Lancaster Grand's parent company desperately wanted Dominion's $2.8 billion expansion deal. Behind the marble reception desk stood Ethan Garrison, a white receptionist in his 30s with slick back hair and a practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. His gaze swept over Martha, taking in her brown skin, modest attire, and the way she stood like someone who didn't need to announce her importance. The lobby buzzed with activity. Executives with designer luggage, tourists with expensive cameras, staff moving efficiently. But Martha noticed the subtle patterns. How quickly certain guests were attended to, the warmth of greetings distributed unevenly, the silent evaluations happening with each new arrival. She wasn't here for comfort or luxury. Martha was here to observe, document, and determine whether Lancaster Grand deserved Dominion's partnership. The hotel claimed to value service and respect, principles her husband had lived and died for. She was about to put them to the test. "Good afternoon," Martha said, her voice calm and measured. "I have a reservation for the presidential suite. Name's Washington, Martha Washington." Ethan's eyes flickered briefly to her face, then back to his computer. "Reservation for Washington," he muttered, typing slowly. His gaze returned to her, lingering a moment too long on her simple pearl earrings and practical handbag. "May I see some identification, please?" he asked, his tone suggesting this was routine, though Martha had already noticed 3 white guests check-in without similar requests. She reached into her purse and presented her Department of Defense military spouse ID card, gold star emblem visible, indicating she was a widow of a service member who died in the line of duty. Ethan took the card, turning it over in his hand with a smirk. "We get a lot of these," he said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "People think military family cards get them special treatment everywhere." Martha remained perfectly still, her expression unchanged. 20 years of military life had taught her discipline. "The reservation was confirmed last week," she said evenly. "Well," Ethan replied, handing back her ID with barely concealed disdain, "it seems there's an system error. The presidential suite is unavailable." He typed performatively. "We can offer you a standard room on the 8th floor." Martha noticed a white couple being escorted toward the elevator bank, the concierge mentioning presidential suite as they passed. "I see," Martha said, accepting the room key Ethan slid across the counter. "Am I confirmed amenities package?" "Basic amenities only, I'm afraid. System limitations." His smile tightened. These spouse cards often have restrictions. Martha didn't react to the slight. Instead, she nodded once, retrieved her ID, and took the key. As she turned away, she discreetly pressed a button on her watch, and in the recording of their interaction, in her mind, she was already composing the first line of her report. Lancaster Grand, New York. Immediate discrimination observed at check-in. Military widow status dismissed. Racial profiling evident. The evaluation had begun. The following morning, Martha approached the VIP lounge entrance, her room key in hand. The door required key card access, which her executive booking should have authorized. "Excuse me," said a staff member stepping forward. "This area is reserved for our elite guests." "I have the executive package," Martha explained, showing her room key. The attendant, Lisa, according to her name tag, glanced at the key and then at Martha. "I'm sorry, but according to our system, you don't have lounge access." Her eyes never quite met Martha's. "Could you check again?" The confirmation clearly stated. "I've checked," Lisa interrupted. "Perhaps there was a misunderstanding when you booked." As Lisa spoke, an older white couple approached. They flashed their room key, the same type as Martha's, and were immediately welcomed with warm smiles. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson. Your usual table by the window is ready." Martha quietly recorded this interaction on her watch device. At lunch, she visited the hotel's acclaimed restaurant. Despite having made a reservation, the host seated her at a small table near the kitchen doors, despite numerous window tables sitting empty. "Those are reserved," the host explained curtly when she inquired. Minutes later, a white family was seated at one of those reserved tables without hesitation. That afternoon at the gym entrance, Martha presented her room key again. The attendant frowned. "We need to verify your guest status. There have been incidents of non-guests attempting to use our facilities. Is verification required for everyone?" Martha asked calmly. "Only when necessary," he replied, eyes darting to her room key suspiciously. Through each interaction, Martha maintained her composure. The same composure Thomas had shown during 20 years of military service despite facing similar prejudice. That evening in her room, Martha reviewed her notes. The pattern was unmistakable. Consistent denial of services included in her package, excessive verification requests, preferential treatment for white guests. She opened her laptop and updated her report, adding each incident with precise details, times, names, exact wording. 20 years as a military spouse had taught her the importance of accurate documentation. Martha touched the wedding band on her finger. "You do the same, Thomas," she whispered. "Stand your ground. Document everything. Maintain your dignity." Tomorrow would bring more tests and more evidence for her evaluation. On her second day, Martha strategically dressed more casually, a simple blouse and slacks, making herself even less remarkable to the staff who had already dismissed her. She activated her recording devices before leaving her room. At the concierge desk, she requested assistance booking a local tour. The concierge barely looked up. "Sorry, we're fully booked." When Martha lingered, mentioning her interest in historical sites, he added impatiently, "There's a public bus that goes downtown." 20 minutes later, she observed the same concierge enthusiastically arranging private tours for a white family, complete with printed maps and dinner reservations. In the hotel cafe, Martha overheard two staff members talking when they thought no one was listening. "Another one of those military widow cards," one whispered. "They think waving those around entitles them to everything." "I know," replied the other. "Half of them probably bought those IDs online anyway. Like, why would someone like her be married to an officer?" Martha's hand tightened around her coffee cup, memories flooding back. Thomas in his dress blues at their wedding. The countless base relocations. The late-night calls when duty required immediate deployment. The final knock on her door. 2 officers standing solemnly on her porch. 20 years of love, sacrifice, and ultimately loss, reduced to suspicion because of her skin color. Back in her room, Martha opened her laptop again. She wasn't just collecting evidence for Dominion's investment decision. Each dismissive interaction, each suspicious glance, each denied service represented thousands of military families, particularly minorities, who faced the same treatment without her power to respond. She thought of Thomas's words when he'd faced discrimination during his rise through the ranks. "We don't fight only on battlefields, Martha. Sometimes dignity is its own battlefield." Her phone pinged with a message from Dominion CEO. "Final evaluation meeting tomorrow. Recommendations?" Martha's response was clinical. Assessment nearly complete. Significant concerns identified. Full report by morning. As she prepared for bed, Martha opened a small travel case containing Thomas's medals, the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, his commander's coins, tokens of a lifetime of service. Beside them lay the folded flag from his funeral and a photo of them together. Him in uniform, her smiling proudly. "They don't see me, Thomas," she whispered, "just like they didn't truly see you. But tomorrow they will." Martha woke before dawn on the third day, her military habits persisting even decades after Thomas's death. She sat at the desk, finalizing her report with methodical precision. The document now contained 47 instances of discrimination, each meticulously documented with timestamps, names, and supporting evidence. She opened a secure folder on her laptop labeled Lancaster Grand Final Recommendation and began typing. After comprehensive evaluation, I cannot recommend proceeding with the $2.8 billion investment in Lancaster Global Holdings. Systematic discriminatory practices were observed toward military families, particularly minorities. This behavior indicates deeply embedded cultural issues inconsistent with Dominion's ethical investment standards. Martha paused, remembering Thomas's words when he received his promotion to colonel. Rank isn't about power, Martha. It's about responsibility. She felt that responsibility now. From her suitcase, Martha removed a carefully pressed navy blue dress, more formal than anything she'd worn during her stay. Next came a small velvet box containing the Military Spouse Medal of Honor she'd received after Thomas's death. She rarely wore it, but today it would serve a purpose. She also prepared Thomas's official military biography and his posthumous commendation from the president. Documents proving the distinguished career of the man whose widow had been treated with such dismissive contempt. Martha arranged her Dominion business cards, embossed with gold lettering identifying her as Director of Military Family Compliance and Ethics Standards, the same position that gave her authority over the $2.8 billion deal Lancaster desperately wanted. As she dressed, Martha wasn't angry. She felt focused, much like Thomas had described feeling before important missions. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dominion CEO. Board awaiting your recommendation. Proceed as you see fit. Martha responded simply. Recommendation submitted. Confronting management at 0900. It was time for Lancaster Grand to learn who they had been disrespecting. At precisely 9 a.m., Martha entered the lobby. Now she wore her navy dress, her husband's military spouse medal pinned prominently on her lapel. Her posture was military straight, her chin lifted with quiet dignity. The lobby hushed slightly as she walked directly to the reception desk, where Ethan was organizing key cards, the same dismissive expression on his face as when they'd first met. Good morning, Martha said, her voice carrying clearly. I'd like to speak with the manager, please. Ethan glanced up, recognition flickering across his face. The manager is unavailable at the moment. Perhaps I can help you with checkout. I don't think you can, Martha replied evenly, placing her Dominion business card on the counter. Ethan stared at the card. The color drained from his face as he read her title. I'm Martha Washington, Director of Military Family Compliance at Dominion Equity Partners, she said, loud enough for nearby staff and guests to hear. The same Martha Washington you downgraded from the presidential suite. The same military widow whose ID card you suggested might be fraudulent. Several guests turned to watch. A woman at the concierge desk stopped mid-conversation. I didn't, Ethan stammered. Martha removed a second item from her purse, a folder containing Thomas's military biography and photo of him in full dress uniform, receiving the Bronze Star. This is Colonel Thomas Washington, United States Marine Corps, she said, opening the folder. My husband gave 27 years of service to this country before dying on active duty. The man whose widow you felt comfortable disrespecting. Martha's voice remained measured, but her words landed with precision. I've been here evaluating Lancaster Grand's treatment of military families and minorities for Dominion's potential $2.8 billion investment. She placed her comprehensive report beside Thomas's photo. My recommendation to our board, which they've accepted this morning, is to cancel all investment negotiations with Lancaster Global Holdings, effective immediately. The lobby fell completely silent. A guest discreetly began filming with his phone. The consistent discrimination I experienced isn't just unprofessional. It dishonors the sacrifices of military families across this nation. Martha gathered her documents calmly. Your manager will receive official notification within the hour. The report details every incident over my 3-day stay. As she turned to leave, Martha added, next time someone presents a Gold Star family ID, remember, they've already paid a price you cannot imagine. Within 30 minutes of Martha's departure, Lancaster Grand erupted into crisis. The regional director rushed downstairs, frantically questioning staff about some military widow. By then, Martha was already in a taxi heading to Dominion's New York office. The guest video of Martha's confrontation hit Twitter first. Black military widow reveals she's canceling $2.8 billion deal after hotel staff mocked her husband's service #RespectOurVeterans. Within 2 hours, the clip had 3 million views. Lancaster CEO received the official cancellation notice during an investor meeting in London. He abandoned his presentation mid-slide when an assistant whispered the news. The company's stock plummeted 18% before noon. Ethan was immediately placed on administrative leave. By evening, he was formally terminated, his security clearance revoked within minutes. The HR director who had hired him was summoned to an emergency board meeting to explain their staff training procedures. Lancaster's competitors seized the opportunity. Marriott announced an enhanced military family program within hours. Hilton CEO issued a statement reaffirming their commitment to honoring service members and their families regardless of race or background. Military organizations mobilized their considerable social media presence. The American Legion shared the video with the caption, "This is how a Gold Star widow was treated. Remember her husband died serving you." Veterans flooded Lancaster's social media accounts with their own stories of discrimination. Military family groups organized boycotts. A senator who chaired the Armed Services Committee called for an investigation into how military families were treated in the hospitality industry. Meanwhile, at Dominion's headquarters, Martha quietly continued her work, declining interview requests from major networks. When pressed by colleagues about the viral video, she simply said, "This was never about me. It's about respect for all who serve and sacrifice." Lancaster Global Holdings announced a comprehensive reorganization of their executive team the following week. Their newly hired chief diversity officer, a retired Army colonel, implemented mandatory training for all staff on military cultural awareness. Industry analysts estimated the total financial impact on Lancaster would exceed $4 billion when accounting for the lost deal, stock devaluation, and business decline. All because they failed to recognize the quiet dignity of a military widow who had already sacrificed everything for her country. 3 months after what business schools now called the Lancaster incident, Martha Washington sat at her desk at Dominion's headquarters, reviewing a new hotel chain's military family accommodation policies. Her viral moment had faded from headlines, but its impact continued to ripple through the industry. Lancaster Global had implemented sweeping changes: mandatory respect training, preferential hiring for veterans and military spouses, and a partnership with Gold Star families. They'd reached out to Martha about reconsidering the investment deal, but Dominion remained firm in their decision. Martha never sought personal recognition. She declined speaking engagements and book offers. When asked why, she would say, "My husband didn't serve for acclaim. Neither do I." The photo of Thomas in his dress uniform remained on her desk, her reminder of why this work mattered. Military families, particularly minorities, wrote to thank her for standing up when they couldn't. Their letters meant more than any viral fame. In hotel lobbies across America, staff training now included specific modules on respecting military ID cards and understanding the significance of the Gold Star emblem. What Martha had done quietly, with dignity rather than drama, had changed an entire industry's approach. One afternoon, Martha received a letter from a young black woman whose husband was deployed overseas. She described showing her military spouse ID at hotel and being immediately upgraded to a better room, with a note thanking her family for their service. "Because of you," the letter concluded, "my sacrifice is finally visible." Martha smiled, touching her wedding ring. That visibility, that respect, was Thomas's legacy continuing. So what about you? Have you ever witnessed disrespect toward those who serve our country or their families? How did you respond? Share your story in the comments below, and let's continue honoring those who sacrifice for us all with the respect they deserve.